The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel is written to us by Luke. Jesus took Peter, John, and James, and he went up a high mountain to pray. And while he was praying, his face changed in appearance. His clothes became dazzlingly white. And behold, two men were seen talking with him, Moses and Elijah. They appeared in glory, and they spoke of his exodus. And Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but now they awakened, and they saw his glory, and the two men standing with him. As they were about to depart from there, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is so good to be here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what he was saying, and while he was still speaking, a cloud came over them and cast a shadow, and they became frightened as they entered the cloud. And from the cloud came a voice, and it said, "This is my chosen Son. Listen to him." And after the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell silent, and they did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen. This is the gospel of the Lord. So this is the account that's always read on the second Sunday of Lent, the story of the Transfiguration. We read Mark's version, Matthew's version, and this year we read Luke's version. And they're each a little different, and that in itself should tell us it apparently wasn't important to know exactly how it happened, because we have 3 different accounts, and each one says it happened differently. So people who argue about this is the only way, it's hardly ever the only way. Spiritual texts have many levels of understanding. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to give you some of the possible but beautiful symbols that are contained in this short reading, because we're going to bless and send our catechumens and introduce our candidates, so I don't want to take too long. But just a few ideas to intrigue you so that hopefully you'll go home and study the text for yourself. So, it's called the moment of Transfiguration, where Jesus walks to the mountaintop, and he only takes 3 people with him. Now remember, this is all very stylized. It's set up like a big picture. And in fact, this picture has been painted many times. He stands in the middle. On each side of him stand Moses and Elijah. Now those are the symbols of the 2 parts of the Hebrew Scriptures, the law and the prophets. Maybe in our language you'd call it, to be perfectly honest, the conservatives and the liberals, right? The law is what conservatives are usually involved about, and the prophets wanting to change things are what the liberals are usually talking about. And isn't it interesting that he stands between them both, seemingly saying they're both part of the picture? But as we're seeing in our country right now, most people are told to take sides. Jesus, in fact, doesn't take sides, but he resolves the conflict by holding them both together. And in fact, that's symbolized at the end where it says they both disappear and he stands there alone. Beautiful, beautiful symbolism. Now, he only invites 3 up to the mountaintop because maybe they're only the 3 who are ready for this kind of in-depth experience. And they get so excited. Who wouldn't, if you had a wonderful moment of religious experience, that they want to permanently reside there? And in his beautifully naive way, Peter says, let's build 3 tents. I just want to stay here. I don't want to go down the mountaintop. Who would? I remember actually being on this spot years ago, 25 years ago. I was given retreat to the Franciscans, and we have a house on the top of this hill where the beautiful church overlooks this site. And I remember there was nailed to a tree a little sign that said, "No camping." And I said, well, we're still having the same message 2,000 years later. Now, the Franciscans want to have a good sleep at night, so they allow no camping on the mountaintop. And I guess Jesus didn't allow them to go camping either. No tents. He did not know what he was saying, the text says. But then the symbolism grows even deeper. It says, while he was still speaking, so they've had this moment of light where his face shines. It's really the first moment where his divinity is revealed to them. That this isn't just a man, but a man God. And we've got to put those two together. But this is incomprehensible. We don't know how to put man and God together. So he just has to reveal to them in his very person that it's possible. Because if we don't know it's possible, we can't imagine putting it together in ourselves. And that's the whole job, for you to recognize that you also are children of this earth and children of heaven. Sons of God and sons of the earth. Daughters of the earth and daughters of heaven. But as he's revealing this to them, perfect symbolism, a cloud comes over, and they became frightened. In other words, spiritual things can never be perfectly or fully or totally understood. As Paul will say later, we know only in part. And so it's half light, but it's half cloud. You get it, but you don't get it. If only religion had always been that humble. So many people who call themselves Christians today, they think they get it entirely, 100%. I know the whole explanation. No, you never do. As has been said many times, people who really know that they don't know. That's what it means to know spiritual things, to be humble about it, to know that you're still in kindergarten. Who of us can understand the face of God, the mystery of love? So, in the presence of this mystery that is too big for them, instead of being attracted as they were a moment before, wanting to build 3 tents, they become frightened. And then they do hear a voice saying that he is the one. He is putting together what you also must put together. Listen to him. And after they heard the voice, Jesus was standing there alone. They fell silent, and they didn't talk about it. Now, in the other 2 accounts, in Matthew and Mark, it says Jesus told them, don't talk about it. Because, you see, I hope you've all had one moment where God became real for you. I hope. Otherwise, most of this doesn't make sense. I hope you know that, too. It's all just gobbledygook. It's all just going through the motions. Until this all becomes real for you, and you have your moment of transfiguration, there's nothing to talk about, but it gets even worse. There's no point in talking about it because you can't. Deep spiritual experience, like a profound sexual encounter or a moment of mystery in nature, words will always fall short. You can't talk about it. To talk about it would be to cheapen it. You have to treasure it in your heart. You have to mull over it. You have to ponder it, usually for years, to say, what did that mean? What was God trying to speak to my heart? So we read this every year to invite you into the same experience, knowing that whatever your experience is, you'll never really be able to talk about it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't treasure it and know that it is true.